pretty common scenario if you play killer is you're trying out a new killer or someone that you're unfamiliar with or a new build. You load into an unfavorable map and it just seems like no matter what you do, you can't seem to get that down on that first survivor. You hear a gen pop, and then another, and flash forward you're staring at the exit gate with 2 hook stages and 10 years off your lifespan. And you might be asking yourself, why are the survivors playing like this? Why are they speed running this game? Well, dear viewer, I am not a survivor main, but I do dabble in playing both sides, and I have a lot to say about this specific topic. So channel your inner Ash Williams and buckle up. Let's talk about genrushing. Firstly, let's define this term, genrushing, to make this video easier to follow. Genrushing is when the survivor team brings perks and items for the sole purpose of sticking on generators and finishing them as fast as possible, potentially sacrificing any secondary objectives, heals, or unhooks in the process. That is my definition. That is what I will be referring to as genrushing throughout this video. So let's get into why survivors might play this way. Survivors, on their own, do not have much power. This lack of power can weigh on them across multiple rounds where they perform poorly, whether they got tunneled out, slugged, or simply didn't loop the killer for as long as they could have. Every loss is a reminder of how little control that you have over the average trial, and a consistent way to have more control is to bring a gen-focused build. It establishes you as a valuable asset to the team. You can make the difference between whether or not your teammates are able to escape, and you have a tangible impact on the average trial. It is satisfying to be the reason why your team escapes, especially if you've been stuck with bad teammates too many times in the past. That brings us to when I play Survivor, I almost exclusively play solo queue, which means I'm playing with people I don't know. I also rarely escape most trials. When I was bringing gen builds, recording for this video, I didn't have to worry as much about whether or not my teammates were doing gens because I was progressing them so quickly. And honestly, it was just relaxing knowing what my role was on the team. I was the gen jockey. Some Survivor players struggle with looping, or maybe haven't found success with healing or chase builds, or maybe just feel most comfortable with being a gen jockey. Some of the times you see survivors running toolboxes or prove thyself or deja vu, those are just the perks that they enjoy running the most, and video games are about doing what is fun for you. You would not believe your eyes. You would not believe your eyes. The 3 most popular items that survivors run are flashlights, medkits, and toolboxes. These can all have a game-changing effect on any given trial. However, medkits can be countered by any number of healing perks, the same way a flashlight can be countered using Lightborn or by just facing a wall while picking up a survivor. But toolboxes are consistently able to have a noticeable impact on the game regardless of what the killer brings into the trial, especially if they're used to progress gens rather than sabotage hooks. There's basically nothing that a killer can bring that specifically affects toolboxes. There is a cycle in DBD where killers and survivors are constantly trying to outdo each other when it comes to how fast the generators are being done. Killers bring pain resonance and pop goes the weasel, so survivors bring stakeout and hyperfocus. And at high levels of play, it can feel like winning isn't possible without bringing something to start you at an advantage over your opponent. This unfortunately means that killers that aren't bringing gen regression can get paired with survivors bringing gen builds, and that killer can feel like it's unfair for gens to fly so quickly. But that's not an issue with the survivors, it's an issue with the balancing of higher MMR DBD. There are a bunch of tome challenges where you have to do multiple generators or use up all of a toolbox. There are achievements where you have to do a specific gen on a specific map, and it's common for survivors that are playing with friends to coordinate their builds and have someone focus on generators. And this part's just for me. I just love seeing the gold bar when I'm repairing a gen. It's very pleasing and it makes the overall process feel less tedious even though it's such a minor change. So now we've covered a bunch of reasons why survivors might play in this highly efficient way. Though you might still be frustrated because that doesn't change the fact that your games are still going too quickly and the killer role is feeling unfair. I'm here to give some general advice for any killers struggling with gen speeds. I'm going to cover the 2 types of gameplay on the killer side. Micro gameplay is the 1v1. the chases you have with each individual survivor. This category includes mind games, knowing tiles, knowing how to use your killer power to injure and down a survivor. Macro gameplay is the 1v4. This category includes knowing when to tunnel, slug, and camp, knowing how quickly generators are being done, knowing how to maintain pressure and keep the survivors off of gens. The best in-game example of prioritizing macro over micro gameplay is in this killer match where I decided to chase a healthy survivor on death hook rather than an injured survivor that I hadn't hooked yet. Even if the chase will take longer, it will be a better decision in the long run because I'll be getting someone out of the trial. These are skills that come with experience, and most importantly, they come from loss. Every time you lose a game is a learning experience to figure out what went wrong, whether there was something you could have done differently, and what to do next time. There's no one right way to play the game, but it's important to know what your options are and how to generate the most pressure in any given trial. An undeniable fact in Dead by Daylight is that there are strong and weak killers and perks. You need to know what you enjoy the most in any killer match. If you really enjoy winning, but you're also playing a stealth killer with the most obscure, least used perks you could possibly find, then you need to prepare to lose. If you've decided that you refuse to tunnel, camp, or slug, then you are letting go of a potential advantage that you can gain over survivors. I play the game as a way to relax and a way to form human connections. That brings me the most joy. Give yourself some time to think about what you want out of a killer trial and make choices in accordance with that. A common issue as killer is overcommitting, or chasing a survivor for so long that you lose any pressure that you had over the survivor team overall. This is a difficult problem to identify because of the sunk cost fallacy. Once you've spent too much time on one survivor, leaving them would mean accepting that you've wasted time and effort for no reward. It's also an important skill to identify the looping skills of the survivors you're facing. For example, I'm more likely to chase a survivor that I've caught off guard, rather than a survivor who's actively trying to get my attention. Knowing when to commit to a chase and when to walk away could make the difference between whether or not you're able to win a killer match. I already said, I think it's important to treat losses as a sort of learning opportunity. Sure, if you lose a few games, then it could be bad luck or just a few bad games. But if you've lost a bunch of trials in a row, then you might need to adjust or look at how you're playing. Perks are meant to make up for weaknesses that you or your killer might have. When I'm playing Trapper, I'm more likely to run perks that slow down gen progress in order to give me time to set up my traps. But as Bubba, I bring perks that make me more lethal in chase. The solution to generators moving too fast isn't bringing gen regression perks. That might be a part of it, but you also have to remember what exactly helps you maintain pressure. Before we move on to the conclusion, I want to give a big thank you to my awesome Ko-Fi supporters. Thank you, Souza, Fluffy, Alibi, Gwen, Fajitas, Taxi, Bashi, Hammock, Nelson, Katz, Itza, Clover, Ulrun, Herp, and Leo. The topic of gen rushing can ruffle a lot of feathers. Gens can fly for so many reasons, and I think that the least common one is that the survivors personally don't like you. The truth is that you're sometimes going to be playing killers that you're unfamiliar with, or you're going to get a map that you're not good at navigating, or any number of things that can throw you off your game. If you immediately assume that gens are flying because the survivors are a toxic 4-man Swift that hate you, then you're just gonna have a lot less fun with this game. The best advice that I can give to any killer that's struggling with a lot of losses: never, ever go to the exit gate if you've completely lost a game. Even if they're waiting out the entire timer, just mute the game, put on some music, watch a video, anything except for looking at them. Don't let them disturb your peace. And to survivors, you shouldn't feel bad for playing how you want to play. Generators are your objective, and focusing them isn't toxic or malicious in any way. I think it's important for us all to remember that this game is unbalanced and unpredictable, and things are often going to go wrong. But we adapt, and we get better. Those losses are not a reflection of who you are or your intelligence, they only help you grow.